Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing the TV show My Lady Jane. So, before I head into my thoughts and feelings on this show, quick warning, don't I don't really plan on having spoilers in this video. I don't know how to talk about this video because I don't consider history to be a spoiler, because even though this is very loosely based on the story of Lady Jane Grey, the thing is there is still bits and kernels of historical truth in this narrative. So I don't know. Spoilers might kind of sort of slip out in this video. I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys. If you have seen this show or not, watch at your own discretion, I suppose, because I'm not quite sure how I'm going to talk about this show, because I think it's kind of important to talk about certain aspects of it in order to warn you prior to going into the show if this is not going to be the type of show for you. So yeah, let's get going after that overly lengthy me being kind of confused how to review this show. Let's see. This is what the show is about. Let's start there. This is what the show is about. It aired on Amazon Prime with 8 episodes, and My Lady Jane is a comedic, let me repeat, a comedic reimagining of the story of Lady Jane Grey, where this time she keeps her head, learns of a conspiracy to kill her cousin King Edward, and finds love with her betrothed. Oh boy, you guys, this show, I'm very conflicted how I felt about it, but I think I weirdly liked it. Seriously, I'm very shocked that I weirdly liked this show, because the first episode I was having a rough time. I was having a rough time because the part of me that wants a certain degree of historical accuracy was like, oh hell, oh my god. Because normally I'm someone, I don't mind if there are historic liberties taken, you know what I mean? TV shows and movies, they have to do what they think is best for like a plot arc or a character arc in order for a narrative to kind of flow and make sense and to be entertaining at the end of the day. So a lot of times I'm pretty lenient when it comes to historical accuracy. It doesn't really bother me that much. But oh boy, this show, it takes historical inaccuracy to like a whole nother level, and it's kind of interesting. And that's where I'm kind of a little like, I don't know how I feel, but weirdly enough, I still kind of enjoyed the show, like a guilty pleasure, if you will. So another thing you need to know about this show, it's based on a young adult book by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. And right there, that when I saw that 3 authors wrote this book, which when I've seen the book at like Barnes & Noble before, it's not a very big book. Why the hell are there 3 authors writing this book? It's just a little peculiar to me. I don't know, that just does not make any sort of sense to me. I even though I did enjoy this show, I honestly do, I just don't think I have any interest in reading this book, especially if it's wrote by 3 people. No. That seems like a whole world of mess right there. But yeah, we're not here to talk about the book. Okay, so yeah, I have notes. I have notes here, but it's like I'm still just like, I still don't know what to think. Let's see. Like I said, there is absolutely nothing historically accurate about this show, you guys. But as I also said, there are those elements of truth littered and scattered in there. I think what you need to understand and comprehend about this show is that you need to go into it and you just need to calm your ass down and relax. Because I found out quickly that I needed to be like, okay, I need to chill and relax with this show or I'm not going to enjoy it. I think in some ways this show, it has no intention of being historically accurate. You know, it has absolutely no intention. Its function is to be purely entertaining, and I think to really be much more of a social commentary, and it's using this time period in Tudor history to tell that commentary, I think. It's meant to be much more of not only kind of showing its own social commentary within the narrative, but it's also, I think, just it's a satire. It's a parody. It's a parody of the Tudors themselves. And I think it's a parody as well for just historical period dramas like this in general. Because I feel like if you're someone like me and you love all things British historical period dramas and British royal family drama and all that good stuff, this is going to kind of be the type of show that this type of humor and parody, I think you're going to like and appreciate, and like, you'll understand it quicker, I think, than maybe perhaps an average viewer who is just kind of casually coming into this show. I'm very curious how a casual viewer walking into this show feels. Seriously, if you walked into this show and you had no idea about the Tudors and the whole Lady Jane Grey story, and yeah, if you don't watch very much of period dramas, I'm just kind of really curious your thoughts and opinions on this show, if you liked it or enjoyed it. I'm just really curious, because I like I said, I feel like those of us who really love and appreciate history, I almost feel like we're getting more out of it in a sense, because we're understanding the joke. Does that make sense? I think we're understanding the joke and the fun and the satire and the parody of this. So yeah, just looking at my notes here really quickly because I don't want to forget anything. Yeah, I found the show in general to be super fun, with great comedy. I thought the comedy was genuinely hilarious, because there were many instances I was laughing out loud. Yeah, it's very humorous with the historical and period drama parody. There's really great witty social commentary in here. Yeah, a degree of magical realism, which was unexpected because the trailers did not show this magical realism aspect. I'll get to that in just a second. And yeah, there's a really adorable romance, you guys. I fell hard for the Jane and Guilford romance. I loved it. But yeah, back to the magical realism really quickly. This is what I was talking about. I'm not sure how to talk about the show, because I feel like I'm going to start getting into spoiler territory to a degree. But yeah, if you're watching this review and you've not seen the show, I do think it's kind of important you know this magical realism aspect of the show. That way, if you think it's going to turn you off, then don't watch the show. Now, historically, during this time period, where we have this transition of Edward and Mary and, Lady Jane Grey being right there stuck in the middle in her 9-day reign as tragic as a queen, it's all really tragic. Historically, during this time period, for much of the Tudor reign, really, there's the big thing within the country of the Protestants versus the Catholics, and yet Henry VIII, the dissolution of the monasteries and whatnot, and yeah, all these different factions, the people who are Catholic, the people who are Protestants, it's all chaotic and all dramatic. People turning against each other, people getting executed for treason, essentially, just because you worship the wrong religion. It's crazy. So this show, I don't think it ever once mentions anything about the Catholics and the Protestants. Instead of the show being about that religious divide amongst these characters, instead it goes this magical realism route. And okay, I'll try to explain this as best I can. So in this world, this is like an alternative world of Tudor England, okay? You need to be really clear about that when you go into the show. This is pretty much alternative history. So instead of the religious drama that's brewing in the background, what this show is doing instead is that there's this divide between humans and these other beings called Ethians. And what Ethians are, they're essentially shapeshifters. They can change in and out and be animals. It's kind of like on Harry Potter, for instance. You have characters who are animaguses, and like Sirius Black. Sirius Black he's human one minute, he can be a dog the next. It's kind of the same sort of thing in this world. So instead of the religious conflict, there's this conflict between the humans and the Ethians. And that's what I was saying. This show, It is. It's just much more of a parody of just period dramas in general, but also just a big, huge thing of social commentary that in some ways kind of relates more to our modern world in some ways, because this show definitely explores this whole thing of xenophobia, essentially, the fear of the other, the lack of understanding and the lack of compassion for the other. Yet this whole show, that's what this show turns into, crazy enough, which I was not expecting. I was not really expecting that sort of depth, I suppose, if that's the right word. So I think before you head into this show, you need to understand that there is magical realism. And yeah, complete toss away of kind of the real things going on during this time period. So yeah, what am I trying to tell you? If you decide to watch the show, you just need to calm your ass down, relax, and have fun with it. Just kind of open yourself up to the possibility that you might kind of, weirdly enough, enjoy this, because that's what happened to me. Like I said, the first episode, it took me a while to get my head into a certain headspace that I needed to enjoy what this show is and what it's trying to do, rather than what I'm kind of wanting it to do, if that makes sense. So yeah, my word of advice, just relax. Open yourself up and have fun with it, because I think it was genuinely pretty hilarious. Okay, so just a quick rundown of this cast. We have Emily Bader, who plays Lady Jane Grey. Lady Jane Grey, notoriously, was queen for 9 days. And what I love about this show, as soon as episode 1 starts and you're introduced to your narrator, you know what you're going in for with this show and what to expect. As soon as the narrator, he's telling you, like, okay, this is what historically happened, and Lady Jane Grey dies, and then his next words are basically, well, fuck that. Right there, that is letting you know what type of show this is. That you need to calm down, and this is not that type of show. This is not going to be a historically accurate show. So I love that. That's how we're kind of introduced to Lady Jane Grey, So, yeah, Emily Bader, I really liked her as Jane. Now, yes, I think she's actually probably a little bit too old to be playing Jane, because I think Jane was only, like, what, 16? Or something like that, and I think Emily Bader's a little bit older. She's playing her a little bit older, I feel like, rather than, like, a super young, naive teenager. Yeah, Jane she's very intelligent and very well educated, and we see that she has, in this universe, she has an interest in like helping people and like making like medicines and things like that, and she likes helping people. She likes to be useful rather than just sitting around like a pretty trophy, And of course, this is based off of a young adult book. So obviously Jane is going to be really spunky and kind of badass in her own way. But yeah, she never I don't think she ever lifts up a sword. She's not like some excellent swordswoman all of a sudden, or expert with a bow and arrow. She's not that type of heroine in this story. She's badass in her own way. Which was kind of refreshing, because sometimes in these young adult stories, when it's period dramas, your heroine, she's just badass and she knows how to use a sword and a bow and arrow, and she just punch somebody and take out a full-grown man. Yeah, Jane doesn't do that. She still feels realistic for the time period in her own way, weirdly enough, as inaccurate as the show is. And yeah, Jane, to her dismay, she ends up being betrothed, and she has no intention of getting married and popping out children. She wants to see the world and do her own thing. But her betrothed is Guilford Dudley, played by Edward Bluemale. I adore Edward Bluemale. He's been popping up in random things I've been enjoying, like, Discovery of Witches and Killing Eve. I really like Edward Bluemale, and I thought he was a really nice choice for Guilford Dudley. Yeah, Jane and Guilford have such an interesting dynamic with one another, because they're forced into this betrothal. They don't really particularly care for one another, but yeah, interesting things start getting revealed, and they start coming closer and closer together, and yeah, it eventually does start to merge into a genuine relationship between these two that you are rooting for at the end of the day. And yeah, Guilford comes from the infamous Dudley family, so you get to see like his father and his brother, but you don't get to see Robert Dudley. You guys, I was really shocked we didn't get Robert Dudley in the show, because if you know your Tudor history, Robert Dudley was supposedly a lover of Queen Elizabeth I. So I was really shocked we didn't get Robert in here. But we could talk about that. If this show happens to get a season 2, maybe Robert Dudley will pop up there. Who knows? But yeah, Jane and Guilford, absolutely adorable, you guys. I did not expect to go into this show and like ship them as hard as I did. And then we have Anna Chancellor playing Frances Grey, who is Jane's mother. Anna Chancellor, I could just watch her all day. She just always is popping up in miscellaneous British shows. I adore Anna Chancellor, and you can tell she is just having such a remarkably fun time with this role. Frances Grey, she's a stern, controlling mother. She's raising 3 girls with no husband. Their father has died. She's raising these 3 girls, and yeah, they're on the verge of like debt and bankruptcy pretty much, and she needs to get her daughters married off, and they need to get married off to good families. So yeah, I loved that portrayal of Frances Grey. It was really nice. We have Dominic Cooper as Lord Seymour, you guys. Now, here's the thing about Dominic Cooper as Lord Seymour, because historically, if I am not mistaken, Lord Seymour, because I think this is supposed to be Edward Seymour, who is the Lord Protector to King Edward. Lord Seymour, at this point in history, he should be dead because he was executed for treason kind of prior to a lot of this stuff happening. But here he is alive and well on the show as one of your big main villains, which was really interesting. And you know, I think in general the acting on this show is very well done, but I think Dominic Cooper perhaps knew exactly the type of show this was, because he plays Lord Seymour very campy. He plays it very over the top. He plays it camp. It's like, I think Dominic Cooper knew exactly what type of show this was, you know, because sometimes I feel like everybody else, even though their performances are good, I think everybody else almost plays things almost a little too seriously at times. But yeah, then we have Kate O'Flynn, who is playing the future Queen Mary. I think there's going to be a lot of controversy about this portrayal of Mary, because in recent decades, Mary the First has been looked upon with a lot of sympathy, because historically she was looked upon as a villain. She was given that name of Bloody Mary, and a lot of historians have been really trying to dismiss that name of Bloody Mary, that her reign was not really that bad, you know, compared to other monarchs before her. But yeah, because she was a woman, historians kind of were trying to blacken her name, you know. So this show is really playing into that stereotype, unfortunately, with Bloody Mary, which is kind of unfortunate. But again, this is not historically accurate by any means. Kate O'Flynn was just so over the top with the role of Mary. She was all over the place, but still kind of weirdly enough enjoyable. And yeah, her and Lord Seymour, you guys, they're a thing. And then we have our narrator, who is voiced by Oliver Chris. The narrator was like the highlight of this show. I'm not going to lie. Anytime he just was commentating on stuff, it was always so hilarious. One of my favorite lines of dialogue from him, Jane is like riding away on a horse and doing whatever, and the narrator just, he's kind of commentating on what she's probably thinking at that time, and the line goes something like, "As the classics like to say, not today, Satan." I couldn't stop laughing at that line. Not today, Satan. Yeah, a lot of his lines of dialogue were just absolutely brilliant and clever and witty. I loved it. And yeah, I mean, I can't spend all day here just talking about every single person, but yeah, a really great supporting cast, because you have like King Edward, his own little plot line going on there. Yeah, even the future Elizabeth I is in this show. They don't do really much with her, but she was still kind of interesting in her own way. Yeah, you get Jane's sister, Catherine, her sisters, Catherine and Margaret. I loved her little sister. Her little sister had some of the most outlandish lines of dialogue. It was great. And yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, Dudley has his brother and father on this show, Stanley, and then Lord Dudley, as his father is referred to. I love the Dudley family dynamic. It was so great. Is there a possibility for a season 2 with the show? Because without spoiling the outcome of the show, it ends in such a way that we could have a season 2. because there's certain little things that kind of happen kind of simultaneously really quickly at the end where you get a couple little reveals. So I think we could have a season 2 for this, and I would totally be here for it. The unique world building of this world is compelling enough to me that I'm interested. So yeah, I'm definitely curious how you guys felt about this show, because I know there's a lot of people who probably just think this show is absolute blasphemy. But I think if you really sit down and think about it and calm down, like I had to do, and you kind of examine what the show is trying to do, I think you can kind of get a whole different perspective on it that makes sense, because this show is not meant to be about this time period. You know, it's doing its own thing. It's much more telling a story of like now, weirdly enough, but using Jane's story as a vehicle to tell that story, if that makes sense. So I'm definitely really curious how you guys feel about this show, because I know it's weird, and yeah, I liked it. If you did not like it, that is totally okay. And we can definitely have different opinions. You know, let's talk about it. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on My Lady Jane. In the comments below, did you guys like this show? Did you hate it? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.